Hello everyone, I'm Xiaogang. Okay, in the last lesson, we briefly wrote this framework. Now the framework is not yet complete and still lacks quite a bit of content. Actually, because it involves the generation and consumption of audio. But let's not rush. Let's first start it up, because at this point, we already have its URL, but our other queue is empty, right? Let's have it try to connect. I really think our current method cannot be tested yet. So let's do this. We'll make it public. Let's make it public first. Okay. Right, let's make this public first. We'll adjust the permissions a bit later to make it easier for us to test. Actually, let's not make it public, because making it public might affect our entire such an internal situation. So here in this BB library, we will write several methods. Here, this library. Actually, we need to write several methods. So first we write just deduct the monsters. First, this is not needed. We only need to determine these three methods. Actually, there are four. We should write the other one later. Okay. So here we need to include the header files we just used. It should be this header file. Okay, of course, we can write them all at once for you. However, to ensure everyone has a good viewing experience, we will still guide you step by step, meaning we will write test code little by little and gradually get the interface working, so that everyone can apply the same method of getting it to work to other vendors or to their own companies. Back in their work, the most important thing for our main focus is still to teach you this method. Okay, here we might need a uFun type, type. For this uFun type, I'll just copy one over because it writes a lot of raw data here. Okay, very much like our first one is begin. Then we call one here. Here, as for the keywords here, we can ignore them, but we need to change the name. For the name, we'll call it exting symbol. Okay. As for this part here, we'll call it exting symbol link. Then, kan接乃可以谱织 then same T. I haven't verified this either, but don't worry about it. Okay, so the same method applies below as well. The same. We'll do it like this here. But we need to change the name. Otherwise, when you create it, the single image names will all be the same. You won't be able to read them yourself. Okay, here mainly change the latter part. This part is stop. Change this begin to this stop. There's also a spelling error here. I dare not sigh. This part is mainly forced to stop. Okay, then we also need to change the keywords. Forced to stop here. This part mainly checks if this exists. And for this part, let's use this name. Then later, we mainly change this working. Okay, basically these three methods. We have these four methods, we call it in blueprint. Later, we will add one for calculating the volume. Good, okay. Should be no problem. Let's create it here. And here we need to show you. So how to call it? Actually calling it is actually the same as our previous approach. In this way, first, we definitely need to ensure we can get this subsystem right. So let's spread it like this. Alright, copy it over and I'll explain it to you. Actually, it's quite simple. Okay. So let's copy this part down here. As for this name, we're definitely missing something because we need an object with a 4-column context. So we add it because our method is static. We must have 4 columns of context to conveniently obtain our subsystem. But in reality, we don't necessarily need to write this all. Because we wrote a static method, but as a standard practice, we still need to write this word context. That is the proper way. So we add this thing. We need to modify it on the side. Okay. Then here, it should be here. Okay. Then here, we first determine that this world context must definitely then we need to include here what is the name of this related GM. That is the relevant header files we use. First of all, we definitely need to include a header file called kissme because it contains the corresponding blueprint classes or libraries we use. Then we also need to include some async related things because we might need to execute delegates asynchronously. And most importantly, we also need to include here this subsystem. This subsystem should be in this. Okay, let's put this at the bottom. Okay, like this. Then for this name, let's paste it here. It should be this one. This subsystem is it. Okay, so for this subsystem, we mainly call this method through this subsystem. We can see that this method currently cannot be called because here it is protected right here. So we need to write a friend for it here. This way, this blueprint class can use its methods. Okay, this step is very critical. If you don't write it, you cannot execute this method here. Then you can see that we are calling this method. Okay, it's showing red here. The reason for this is, let me check. It should return a value here. This is because we did it this way here. We add a GUID here. We write the return value of this GUID onto the parameter name in this way. So we need to add another parameter here. It can be added here. Okay. So this ID, it actually just passes these IDs in. This place is just acting as a relay. Process. So if we succeed executions, then this ID can serve as our identifier. Obviously, at this point, it is very likely because you might not have the world context. Then that would be incorrect. So we execute here and tell it that your world context is incorrect. Then we need to prepare a struct here in this place. So our startup is more complicated. This is how it's done. Okay, so when we close it, it's actually a bit simpler. Let's first look at why this place is showing red. The reason it's showing red is because there is an extra comma here. Okay, so closing it is actually the same. Here we must include this view context and then get our subsystem object. We just need to copy this line. Okay, just close it. And if this part is incorrect, we can directly give it a check. Because this part is definitely where you made a C++ call error. We give it a CheckForce. We just let it crash right here. As for the forced version, it's actually quite similar. We'll extract it. Here we are just calling this false. Yes, users might also have such a requirement for forced shutdown. And then here, to determine whether it is working, we need to access the enum inside it. So here we directly let it return. Okay, here we are calling white IsWorking method. Let's still click in and take a look. It should be calling this one. When we come back, it should be that, whether it is working or not. And note, here we need to use this pure function. Here it should just return a state. A pure function must use a pure function. Okay, so this is basically the method we exposed to Blueprint. Next, let's start it up. Let's see what it looks like inside the Blueprint. Okay, there should be a compilation safeguard for this, right? It's because we don't have a return value here. Let's have Mohamo return 1, false. Just formatted it twice. Let's restart. There's still an error here. Let's check if we missed a return value again. In this case, we don't need to return this GUID. So it should be a void, because for this return value, we write it into the parameters. You should still remember this. This is a common way of writing it. Now let's start it. Okay, we've started it here. Same old routine. We created a new folder here. And then we put a level blueprint in it. Then if we type STT here, we should be able to see our node. Then we input XT. It seems we haven't seen it here. We haven't seen this reason, right? Let's just input it here. Let's just input it like this. Oh, it's not here, is it? Then let's restart the project. It might not have been successfully recognized or loaded in. If it's not here, it might be like this. You'll find that if it's context dependent, it might not be there. Let's just ignore it. Let's just pull out this node and take a look. As for this name, we'll just do it like this. It should be here. We have a stop. Let's lay out these points. This place is clearly the world's up and down. The reason it doesn't match, a normal node shouldn't look like this. We need to fix this node. Okay, let's put it out first. This is definitely wrong. There should be an F. Okay, one more. And here it should be here. Okay, let's say first. Now let's go fix this issue. It should be in our code. Something was written incorrectly. The reason it's wrong is also simple. Because we didn't add static here. Because we didn't add the static. I looked for quite a while. Finally found out it was this reason. Only if you add static. Can it make this sound effect? Be hidden, so that's the reason. If we launch it now, it should actually be normal. Then we note, not quickly. Possibly here, some of the code is not quite correct. Let's take a quick look so everyone will know roughly where it's incorrect. Okay, you'll find that at this point, basically this require info here is obviously incorrect. Then let's adjust it again. Okay, adjust it to what we want. Actually, this parameter here does not need to be exposed. Let's adjust it again. Here. Then here we actually need to add a const. So we won't add this const here. We'll just let it generate one copy. If we change it here, we'll have to change it here too. The main point is here. Actually, we don't really need this parameter. When we call this parameter, we can just pass it a force. Here, it defaults to force. Because this is an internal method we use, it indicates whether a forced close was called during the acquisition. So that's what it means. This will be useful later when we release resources. So don't worry about it for now, because this is about closing resources. After making these adjustments, then come back here, this reference symbol here, we can also remove it. This way, it avoids adding to the reading difficulty for everyone. Try to reduce this difficulty as much as possible. Okay, let's compile it now. Let's start it again. Okay, let's start it again. Okay, we have successfully started it now. Then let's take a look at our level blueprint. Basically, this meets our requirements. This node looks basically normal now. Now let's do a simple test. But we haven't written any single board yet. It definitely won't work. Let's not just write something randomly. This definitely won't work. But let's first see if we can link it up for interaction. You can see it has been successfully linked here. But actually, after the link was successfully established, it immediately closed it. Actually, right here. Okay,